Hi, spots and cheap pops. You're on the air.
Hi, spots and cheap pops, ladies and gentlemen. It's Silicon Steve Alley, Vladi and we are bringing the very best of professional wrestling talk on the internet. Hit the subscribe button, follow us on Spotify, everything you know how to do on these beautiful, beautiful social media platforms. And we continue to grow this beautiful community and, of course, this show. So thank you so much for joining us as we talk professional wrestling. Vladi, we just saw what many people are calling the greatest Raw since the Attitude Era. We had The Rock give one of the most epic beatdowns in recent memory, blood and all. And even when the cameras go off, The Rock continues the beatdown, dropping F-bomb after F-bomb after F-bomb. And then he follows up with a social media post a couple days later, delved into politics and everything and corporations. It's great. The Rock's trying to change the world, but he's starting with beating the living piss out of Cody Rhodes, wiping the blood on Mama Rhodes' belt. Your reaction to the final boss, The Rock, possibly more vicious than anything we've seen before. At least maybe the most vicious beatdown he's ever given, for sure. Because there was no goofiness, there was nothing going on. But give me your reaction on what we saw closing out the show Monday night with Cody Rhodes and the final boss, The Rock.
And it was very fitting because what we had just witnessed is one of the most highly decorated Raws that they've had in many years, maybe decades. And very strong show from beginning to end, especially here at the end. It all comes and it gets tied together in terms of The Rock and Cody crossing paths. And The Rock opens up a door after getting the upper hand on Cody. And in that Chicago night that also starred Drew McIntyre, CM Punk, Seth Rollins in the middle of the show, where legendary segment, we've moved into the cinema portion of this show where The Rock opens up the door. It's raining. The lights, it's in sort of like an alleyway right up against Cody's bus, right up against murals of his stupid dog, even at times. It was his dog Shithead, as he called him, which is a great name for a dog.
I call my dog my puppy.
I'll never, like as I mentioned, I'll never forget the movie The Jerk with Steve Martin, where the dog is called that. It was like one of the funnier jokes in my early childhood. So just hilarious that that's involved with this too. But you have The Rock just going off on Cody, physically just destroying him, almost in a Marvel-esque DC Comics sort of way. And it is getting brutal, and he is just beating him down. And honestly, it was just a cinematic win for Triple H, WWE, TKO, everyone involved. And what was awesome is, as you're watching this, you and I are very familiar with watching what Triple H creates. And all of a sudden, as The Rock is just unleashing on Cody, where you're feeling bad for him, just a man beaten, and over the shoulder of this violence are two of the greatest faces that were ever involved in professional wrestling. One in Stone Cold Steve Austin and another in John Cena. And you almost sense and feel the foreshadowing that's involved here, where Cody is such an underdog, incredible babyface, taking on the bloodline with this sort of ragtag Kelly's Hero sort of group with Rollins and Jey Uso and whoever else. And it's coming to the point where they're going to need reinforcements still. And whatever happens here in WrestleMania this weekend, you're going to probably see those two incredible names, John Cena, Stone Cold Steve Austin, some way, probably to help Cody defeat the Bloodlines, my opinion. So what are your thoughts about what we saw at that point?
Well, again, it's weird. I didn't find the blood and the beating portion of it being the great part. It was the details to it, the rain, the lighting. To your point, John Cena, he's got a score to finish with Solo Sikoa.
Yeah,
Solo Sikoa is a guy John Cena could take out, say this big schmaz at the end.
Yeah.
And what you saw, one of the things is The Rock basically said he and Cody are always going to be, we're going to be part of, they're going to be connected in terms of their rivalry. Yeah. The Rock said that. So initially, Vladi, I thought The Rock was going to be the baby face when he and Roman presumably go after each other next year.
Yeah.
That match is going to probably have to happen soon. So you would assume it's next year. If The Rock, to your point, is now going to be this guy, this heel, this new form of Vince McMahon, without the perverted bullshit, if The Rock becomes this evil boss, such as a Vince McMahon, and Cody is the new Stone Cold, that's kind of how the vibe feels like it's going now. Where I got about a month and a half ago, I'm thinking The Rock is going to be the babyface when Roman turns, because Roman's the one who's insecure. Roman continues to get annoyed when The Rock gets any attention. But what you saw was The Rock, and I don't know how much of a shoot and how much of it is a work, but The Rock is saying, look, screw it. I'm going to be myself. I'm not going to let anyone tell me what to do. They have a lot more leeway to do that on Monday Night Raw, possibly, than they do Friday nights. But that doesn't stop The Rock on Friday nights either. The Rock has said a couple of things on Friday nights that apparently got him in a little trouble. And then, of course, you had the big reports that there were wrestlers that were annoyed The Rock was getting an opportunity to say things that they can't. I thought that was a bullshit story as well. The Rock obviously said it was. So, what was that, Alvarez that reported that?
It was Meltzer, and The Rock said that's horseshit.
Yeah, and I'm sure it is horseshit. I'm sure it is. You know, Meltzer's not always accurate with his WWE stuff. I'm sorry, I could have just stopped. Meltzer's not always accurate, period, right? Anyway, the fact is The Rock, though, did bring that era of Attitude Era back, and we talked about it. The great part about this era is that the mid-card doesn't have the stupid shit that their Attitude Era had, and the women's division's 10 times better. So, but The Rock is bringing that element of the Attitude Era plus the element of Triple H and his ability to tell stories. And because Triple H has done so much in his career in terms of going up and down the towns, working 300 plus days a year, and then working directly under the greatest promoter in the history of professional wrestling, as perverted and as fucked as he definitely is that. But he's also saying, he also probably has a better filter on what actually is good professional wrestling, which is something that Vince actually didn't have far too often, where Triple H doesn't really put anything embarrassing on. But then you talk about John Cena and Steve Austin, and we talked about Cena. He hasn't scored a settle with Solo Sikoa. Maybe he shows up late in the main event. But the moment I'm waiting for, and I think everyone would love it, we're salivating at this possible idea, that Stone Cold Steve Austin, when the chips are down, when it looks like there is no way that Roman is going to be defeated again, and everybody's going to walk out of WrestleMania depressed, sad, feeling like they got kicked directly in the genitals once again, that glass breaks. And if anyone knows, and many of you I'm sure have seen it, and Vladi Dottie, I know this memory is etched in our mind, that pop, arguably the greatest pop in Raw history, when Stone Cold Glass broke and he helped Mankind win his first WWE championship against who? The Rock. And we know that the two biggest rivals, with the exception of Triple H, that The Rock has ever had has been John Cena and Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yep.
And to have those two be part of this to help put Roman down would be incredible. And you can go back as far as a decade ago. Anytime The Rock and Stone Cold have interacted, with the exception of that disastrous WrestleMania 30 kickoff when Hulk Hogan famously thought he was in the Silver Dome in Detroit, when he was in New Orleans. But other than that, they had a couple of really tense moments on screen. There was one particular during the John Cena build, I believe at that WrestleMania he was hosting. They kind of just looked at each other, and there was no hug, good to see you, like the Cena one was a couple months ago. Yeah. This was, I still don't like you, and I still have a score to settle with you, possibly. Now, we know Stone Cold never came back until he fought Kevin Owens a couple years back, but they never said, oh, whatever. And obviously, they talk very nicely about each other when they're doing shoot interviews and such, but if Stone Cold could be the catalyst of the newer version of Stone Cold, which is going to be Cody, even though I dare say he'd a bit more like John Cena than Stone Cold, but you can have that same rivalry. That relationship between Cody and The Rock is the same to Austin and McMahon. And for Austin to be a part of Cody's era and the person to put down Roman, all Stone Cold has to do is that music hits, he walks down, gives a couple stunners, Cody hits 3 crossroads, Solo's not there because Cena took care of him already. Jimmy and Jay, they'll probably hug it out after their match, I would assume. So that might not be a case. Where do you go with Drew McIntyre? Is he going to be part of it? Is Seth going to be part of it after their match? I don't know. But Stone Cold Steve Austin being part of that finish would be something that a lot of people, it's like pie in the sky or what people would love to see, but it's something that I think is very possible. And I almost disappointed if it doesn't happen now. And that's ridiculous expectations. But that's the kind of storytelling, Triple H, and then you add Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns and The Rock. I mean, you're talking about some of the greatest minds in the history of the business. We're seeing cinema. You can call it that all you want. And what a shot. And the bloodline was hitting a lull, I would say, the last 6 months until The Rock came back. My only issue with it, it's not an issue. The Rock clearly is outshining Roman every step of the way. Roman is the champion, and he is an afterthought. Everything going on, he is an absolute afterthought. And what's more is the one spot where it was just Cody and Roman, it was the worst segment of the entire storyline, including last year. That promo between Cody and Roman wasn't terrible, but it wasn't good, especially followed up the next Monday night when you saw everything we saw with Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins, and of course CM Punk. So incredible, and that brings us back to the whole Monday Night Raw. Becky and Rhea was fantastic.
Yes,
I'm not loving the Intercontinental Championship build. I'm one of the people wanted Gable, but overall, Raw was really cooking with grease, and again, a lot of really interesting and great things are going to be happening in that storyline, and I just can't wait for it to come to fruition. We are less than 1 week away. In fact, we're 1 week. In fact, 1 week from this very moment, we should know if Cody Rhodes is your new WWE Universal Heavyweight Champion, or just, is that what it is? Universal Champion? WWE Undisputed Universal Champion? Whatever. The WWE Championship, right? We're going to know in 1 week from this very, very second. Right now, Vladi, we are going to know in 1 week's time. Or can you believe it?
It's crazy. It's freaking crazy.
Imagine the kick in the balls it would be if Roman wins. It was a kick in the balls last year, too. But this one would be... This would be a kick in the balls with, like, spiked shoes. A big spiked spike coming out of the front of the toe, kicking directly into your genitals if Cody loses this match. Like,
So just your nuts laying on a fucking dresser and bang them shits with a spike fucking bat.
Just your nuts, right? If you know, you know.
You mentioned the Becky and Rhea Ripley part of the Raw. I thought that was a strong segment as well. Great, and this is where I really admire Becky's her work on the mic, man. She's like we were discussing pre-production. She is so naturally just gifted as far as how she talks. She knows where she has to take it, but like the emotion that she shows, it feels pretty damn like real. So where the others I think are a little bit more stiff, almost cardboardish at times. I think Rhea Ripley is a good one as well, but Becky I think is the queen of the crop.
Yeah, I mean, I got to be honest with you, and it's not just the women, but there are a lot of the WWE superstars who don't feel comfortable cutting their own promos, a la Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins, and CM Punk. It comes off like a really bad soap opera with some of the lines. It really, really does. And I'm talking even the Bianca and Naomi stuff. I mean, it's like you could tell it's just bad acting sometimes. And that's a little bit frustrating. But other than that, I mean, that's all over the professional wrestling world. It happens in everywhere because people aren't comfortable cutting promos and they're giving lines to say specifically. It's hard unless you're good at throwing yourself in there, it's really hard to come off as natural, which I think is a big problem. I think it's rampant in the women's division, but it happens in the men's division as well. Someone like Austin Theory, very, very, you can feel that he's not cutting promos from here. No one believes him. And that's why despite given every opportunity to grow, including beating John Cena at WrestleMania, he hasn't made it over, and his career has majorly stalled because he never connected with anybody as much as Vince McMahon wanted him to.
And it's like almost an anti-testament to Vince at this point, and you're right about him. He's not over. It's he's got all the parts and pieces, evidently, but it just hasn't clicked. And especially when he's cutting promos, he is a bit wooden at times, you know. But yeah, overall, is getting back to the positives and what made this Raw like one of the best ones in the last 20 years or so. I think that segment with Becky and Rhea going back and forth, Becky nailing a punch right across the face of Dominic. Nice pop off of that. A little bit of chaos at the end of it. And you know what? Listen, I don't think Becky has a chance of winning this match, but she's making it where she still has the crowd invested in on her side as well. I was expecting maybe Rhea to really start outshining her, but they're keeping it just close enough and interesting enough for both sides where it seems a little bit more even Steven.
These two young ladies have done a phenomenal job of building the storyline. Yeah. Conversely, they haven't had near the time nor the build that Bayley and Damage Control and Bayley and Io Sky have had, and that has seemed like it fizzled a little bit of the momentum in that particular storyline. And they've done a lot of work. It kind of, I said it before, it kind of reminds me of MJF and the Adam Cole storyline. They put so much effort into it, and they've been doing work on the storyline for so long. But at this point in time, it's kind of like jerking with a semi. We know Bayley's winning at WrestleMania. I would assume you're going to go with Bayley there as well.
Yeah.
That one I think is one of the slam dunks. So it's just interesting how it works, and it is a testament to Becky and the promos that she cuts. And you're right, because she feels natural out there. She can go out there and cut a promo like a CM Punk or a Drew McIntyre. I'm not saying she's as good as they are, but she feels real and she makes you feel here. And when wrestlers make you feel here, that's when you care about them. Heel or babyface. So I'm with you there. I think Becky has really shown it. And it's going to be interesting being in her mid-30s, being a mom, when her child's going to be now, they're getting 4 or 5 years old, this little girl. Mom needs to be around a lot more. So her next contract, whether it's an AEW or WWE, I doubt that she's going to be doing a 300 days or 100, even 200 days a year. I think those loops are not happening anymore. At least that's going to be on the table because AEW doesn't have loops. And Tony Khan just gave Sasha Banks millions per year, millions upon millions of dollars per year. What would Becky Lynch get? She's twice the star of Sasha Banks. Mercedes Moné, respectively. So it's going to be very interesting. But what she has done to build this feud in very short order, her and Rhea, has been nothing but short of fantastic. And it's the only interesting thing Judgment Day is doing.
Yeah, it's the highest. It's the peak of Judgment Day, to be honest with you. And hey, as we talked about that promo and what that feud is evolving into, you touch base on the segment with CM Punk, Seth Rollins, and Drew McIntyre. As we discussed, not a script in sight. Pretty much, they just rolled with it, if you will. And it was one of the best segments I've seen in a very long time. A lot of credit to all three of those guys. They had a wave of 200,000 more viewers check in during that segment than any other part of the show. And what was great about it was, again, the sense of realness. These guys definitely have had animosity against each other at one point or another. It still lingers, but yet they're professional enough to keep it going and entertain us. And this is all you want as a wrestling fan. And now when we finally get them and see them finally physically going at it, that place should erupt. So really, incredible segment there. Of course, it's in Chicago, home field advantage for Punk, of course. McIntyre comes out, more than holds his own. Just brilliant work on the microphone. He's totally grown in an incredible way as a professional wrestler. I mean, the guy's a star. And then Seth comes out and holds his own as well. And it was a great triangle of chaos out there for a little while. And some great lines were nailed by all three parties. And truly one of the better segments I've seen in a very long time in professional wrestling. Great job.
Yeah, I mean, it was reminiscent in terms of just promos. It was reminiscent of the first CM Punk MJF one in terms of just letting them go at it, and the crowd was into every word. Ironically enough, that was also in Chicago. I mean, look, you're going to have that piece right there. CM Punk in Chicago, the crowd's going to be raucous. And I got to be honest with you, the 200,000, I credit CM Punk for that. And obviously, I'm very critical of CM Punk. But I'm fair with it, I think. Fuck him. No, CM Punk, first time he's on Raw since he got hurt. So it was big in Chicago. And you were able to have him have that promo battle with Drew McIntyre. Again, they've had 3. My scorecard has Drew 3-0. As you can see. And I'll have a very detailed moment in the Valley as to why Drew McIntyre is undefeated in the promos. But that'll be a moment in the Valley because honestly, I would just bore you. So that's why we're doing it there. Just bore you.
Yeah, I would totally be bored with that.
Like I heard it. I get it, Duddy. You don't like the guy. I get it.
Yeah.
Who's Duddy anyway?
Yeah, but I have no idea what you're talking about.
Like Vince McMahon.
But yeah, who's that?
What was that guy's name? Who called you the chosen one? That was a great line by Punk, and the T-shirt one I never had to put.
Yeah.
But Drew had like 4 of them now. He had the one with the shirt. He had the one where the rehab one was great. Even CM Punk was like, you saw CM Punk say, that was a good one. And so Punk is now, I think Punk feels good because he's able, he knows how good that was. And again, it was incredible. It was I'm a promo guy though. That's, I would, whether it's a great match with no consequence or a great promo, I'll take the great promo every time. If it's a great match with no consequences whatsoever, or Shibata Ospreay, if you think that's a good one, or Danielson Shibata, or any New Japan star Tony Khan brings in and puts to a top guy that always has a great match and always loses, whatever the case may be, I would much rather watch a great promo building a storyline than a match like that. And I know some AEW gatekeepers bug, you're not a real wrestling fan. Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's great professional wrestling when you have people do what they did, what Punk and MJF did in the past. That is something that's part of what makes professional wrestling great. And honestly, CM Punk's ability on the microphone is the biggest reason why he's a top star, because that was ballsy I jokingly said CM Punk's going to be a nice little superstar and do as he's told or he's getting fired, which I think he will. But for him to even reference Vince McMahon, I thought was really ballsy. And apparently that was not known he was going to do that. I didn't know if Drew McIntyre said, I don't know what was planned. What lines were planned. If that was just riffing, wow, the chemistry between Punk and McIntyre is incredible. Seth was good, but I thought McIntyre has become maybe a top 10 promo going right now, if not top 5. So McIntyre elevating himself in such a tremendous way. I'm a big DM Hunk fan. I'm certainly rooting for him at WrestleMania, and I'm rooting for him to end CM Punk's career at SummerSlam. No, I'm just joking. No, just joking. I want Punk back healthy so he can entertain us all.
I believe you. Maybe not. But yeah, just an incredible segment, man. And what's pretty beautiful about this segment of the show is that it actually ties into the Bloodline segment as well.
Yeah.
Because you see the interaction with Seth Rollins, and then behind the scenes and in another interview again, hey, what do you see? Drew McIntyre and Paul Heyman talking off to the side.
And Drew
discussing
McIntyre
something.
explained, and Drew McIntyre was impassioned during that conversation. He was like, so,
Yeah.
and him was trying to say, okay, so I still don't think McIntyre is all in on the bloodline. He has said some positive things about The Rock, though. So,
Yes.
a lot of people are wondering if Seth turns. I don't think there's any way Seth turns at this WrestleMania coming up. Reason being, night 2, you're going to want McIntyre to be booed out of that building because McIntyre is going to need to maintain his heel persona by the time CM Punk comes back so they can have their feud. So they're not going to fuck with. I was wondering if McIntyre was going to be a heel and or going to kind of turn and help the Roman Empire fall. Now, I don't think that would make sense because I would think they want to keep the heat on McIntyre long term, have him be the top heel, and hopefully he signs a contract soon. I don't know what's going on with that either, or Seth Rollins or Becky, but it just added to the thing. And now you can see McIntyre is definitely being hypocritical, or some of his values are being compromised for his passion to beat Seth Rollins. And he's saying, Seth, you keep going down this road, you're going to lose. And McIntyre pleaded with him, dude, just focus on me. And then Seth, in a very foolish way, is saying you're not even a top priority to me anymore. So there's no way McIntyre, I think, loses this match with Seth. And I think McIntyre does it in a cheap way. Perhaps having a member of the bloodline help him, and then you see McIntyre come up later on in the main event. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, they're definitely alluding to things. Let me ask you one thing, too. There was that black and white photo that I sent you where The Rock is standing over Cody with the belt that he's going to give to Mama Rhodes. It's a wonderful work of art. I'm thinking about hanging up in my office. And in the distance, there's another superstar on the back of a trailer.
Ooh, I didn't see that. Who was it?
Brock Lesnar.
Oh. I don't think he's going to be related to anything, though. I think that was just a thing. I don't know.
He was recently added. He recently added back to the roster. I mean, he has history with The Rock as well. Do you imagine if they bring him into the mix along with Stone Cold and Cena?
I think that would be overbooking. That would be way overbooking.
To me, and you know what? I've already come to peace with this overbooking because it's exactly what I kind of want. I'm like making my peace with this overbooking moment in history. But the fact that if you can go and include Brock in there, you think it's just way too much?
I think it's way too much. And also, I just don't think he fits in the story at all. I don't. I mean, I know he actually has a lot of history, more history with Roman than he does The Rock. So if anyone want and Roman beat him at WrestleMania, 2 years ago? Or was it? Yeah, 2 years ago. So it does work with the story. I just think it's so filled up right now with all the characters. And bringing Lesnar, it kind of would take away Austin showing up. And I thought that when you discussed Austin earlier, but I'm thinking if they time it in a certain way where even after Brock comes out there, Roman looks like he's going to win somehow, and then it's Rock, Roman, and then it comes out Stone Cold, and then he helps Cody finally. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if Lesnar. I don't want Lesnar in the story at this point. Yeah. But he also gave Cody, I think his last time he wrestled, he gave Cody his seal of approval. So there's that.
Yeah, give him a handshake.
So he does fit with the story. I just think it's way too much. I think if you're bringing in Austin and or Cena, I think Lesnar would just be way too much, in my opinion. I wouldn't necessarily want to see it.
Yeah, I'm just bringing it up solely on the fact that he was on to be, the back of one of the trailers, and then also he was recently added. I mean, listen, I'd rather see him come out at some point of the Gunther match, personally, but it's just odd that we saw Austin, we saw Cena, and in the distance he's there too. It could have been a mistake or coincidence.
That one I think was a coincidence because it wasn't. I have to see it again because I didn't even notice it the first time. So I'd have to see it to kind of maybe judge a little bit better, but I think it would be more the connection between Roman and Brock than more the Rock. I know The Rock lost to him briefly, but there wasn't. Besides, I think they feuded when Brock was on his just came up, and I think he beat Rock for his first world championship, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
At a SummerSlam. So that is a small connection. Other than that, they really have no history from what I remember.
Man.
But then again, respect with Cody, and obviously Roman, you would suggest maybe outside of Cody now that Brock Lesnar is the biggest rival in Roman's career. Lesser extent Seth, but nothing real super recent except for one match that was a DQ finish. Cody obviously is a rival now. He's main eventing WrestleMania 2 years in a row. They're only the second people to do to main or third actually. So we had Rock and Cena main evented 2 years in a row. And now we're getting Cody and Roman. Those are the only times it's ever happened before, where main events were back to back. So, you'd probably have to put this rivalry in. And by the way, both guys are not even 40 years old yet. So they're not done. I think they're both 38 or 39, if I'm not mistaken. So these guys aren't done yet. This is going to be a pretty substantial rivalry, I think, between Cody and Roman. But I don't know where they're going with Roman and Cody. They have us guessing a real lot right now. But finish your point. I don't think Lesnar's going to be a part of this situation. I really don't. I will say if it is, I'm sure it'll be great. I don't think they'll do it to be, you know what I mean? I just think if he has that and has that big entrance, comes out, cleans house, and then maybe The Rock finally comes down and takes out Lesnar. The thing is, how do you get rid of Lesnar? Lesnar can't be beat up, and he's not the kind of guy that chases people in the back. He comes there, destroys, looks around, and walks out. That's Lesnar's kind of vibe.
Yeah.
He doesn't do the running thing. He does the destruction thing. So that's the other part about it. Good, and we'll talk more about the Intercontinental title match. I have an idea of what I think might be happening with that as well. But look, at the end of the day here, the top of the card for this WrestleMania is amazing, absolutely incredible. They've built this between Drew and Seth, between Rock, Roman, Cody, and Seth, and then of course between Roman and Cody. Those three matches alone make this bigger than, in my opinion, I think it's bigger than it was last year, just because of those three matches. But Vladi Dottie, let's look at the rest of the card. Is this a great WrestleMania outside of the marquee matches? Or has Triple H traded his pencil for a shoehorn?
I would have to say that Papa H might be fiddling around with the shoehorn over here.
Well, let's look at the current WWE WrestleMania card, Vladi Dottie. If you do the honors, I think that's how we said we were going to do it in pre-production.
Yeah, and, just taking a look at the matches, let's see if, I'm going to go and avoid the obvious ones that should be there, of course, Roman, Cody, and then also the night one main event. But let's start off with Gunther and Sami Zayn. Do you feel that was a bit of a shoehorn?
I don't know if it was that was a shoehorn necessarily. That one I don't have a big problem with. I think they looked at it like Sammy had this great momentum last year and they kind of squandered it. And so they were trying to pick the momentum up. Obviously, unfortunately, the crowd wanted Chad Gable to win that match. So it is a little bit disappointing because it's not the matchup that people wanted. People wanted Lesnar Gunther. And since that didn't happen, maybe that's why he will be a part of it. But you have Lesnar Gunther. And Gunther even teased Lesnar in a couple of interviews, or it should have been Gable Gunther. This is kind of payback for Sammy for having his momentum broken. So, and they built it up where he won the Intercontinental title. But you're right. They had Sammy. It was more about Sammy becoming this, sympathetic character, sympathetic guy, because he was losing matches. He wasn't winning matches, including a recent loss to Bronson Reed. So I see where they were trying to do it, but the problem is that Gable's the underdog that we wanted to beat Gunther, not Sammy. And when you made it Sammy, it's a little bit whatever. And now I guess because Gable's so over, it looks like Gable's helping Sammy beat Gunther. That's going to be part of this storyline. So not that this was particularly shoehorned, but it certainly wasn't what the crowd wanted. And it's certainly not the match. Maybe it's the third or fourth opponent that people wanted Gunther to see. So that would be my big problem with that match. Not necessarily because it was shoehorned, but don't worry. There's some other horns in there.
Yeah, shoehorned and almost maybe, I don't want to say mediocre, but, Yeah, I wouldn't even go as far as saying mediocre. I'm going to go more the shoehorn route as I'm looking at this list.
It's going to be a great match, but it's not what we want.
Yeah, I agree completely. Well, let's look at this one. This one was just thrown our way most recently. We have Damage Control against Bianca Belair, Naomi, and the newly anointed next big thing, if you will, Jade Cargill.
Paul Heyman would do great with her, by the way. They should get a manager with her, for sure. And not Stokely Hathaway or whoever the hell it was.
No.
It wasn't Stokely Hathaway. It was Smart Mark Sterling. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a shoehorn. And it's a way to get Jade Cargill on WrestleMania. She's a big star. She signed many months ago, but because she was so green or late, she was considered so green, they didn't want to put her on television yet. But yeah, this is shoehorn. But it's a way to get Bianca on. It's a way to get it's a way to get everyone in Damage Control on. It's a way to get Bianca on, Naomi on, and it's a way to have Jade Cargill be a feature attraction on WrestleMania. And it's a way to protect her, but it is shoehorn. And again, it's one of those things that I don't like filler matches. And we get a lot of that with AEW. That was one of the things we've bitched about AEW, that they just put filler matches on their pay-per-views. This is WrestleMania. I don't want a filler match. I want scores settled. I want stories concluded. This is just one of those things where it's not going to be a great match. It'll be a good match. There's good workers in there, but it's an inconsequential match to make Jade Cargill look good. That's all it is. And for me, you could do that on a SmackDown main event. You don't need to put it on WrestleMania. WrestleMania should be premier marquee matchups, and this definitely falls short of that, in my estimation. Why aren't the Women Tag Team Championships being defended? That should have been a match. Not put your tag team champions, and they've done that. By the way, WWE's always done it. They did it in WrestleMania 3 with Dangerous Danny Davis and the Hart Foundation against Chico Santana and the Bulldogs. Your tag championships should be defended at WrestleMania, period. It was, and look, I know it's not the men's tag team, so maybe it's not as prominent, but it's not going to get prominent if they're not being defended. And the Kabuki Warriors could go out and have a great match. You can have a great match with Shayna and Zoe Stark. You can have a great match with the two younger, the Party Girls. And I hope they come up with a better gimmick or whatever or a better name for their team. But Chance and Carter. Or maybe have a four-way dance or something where you can have the tag titles on the line. So yeah, it's shoehorn, but I see what they're doing. It just, to me, WrestleMania should be more than that. And I'm disappointed the tag titles aren't being defended because I think it devalues them.
All right, so as we look at the rest of this lineup, we're talking about filler matches, things of that nature. LA Knight, AJ Styles, thoughts on that?
Again, it's not what we wanted, right? We wanted LA Knight and Logan Paul. These guys have done a good job of building. LA Knight's doing his thing. He's showing up at the guy's house. He's dressed up as a cameraman. LA Knight's doing everything in his power to make this a legit feud, and so is AJ Styles. But again, it feels kind of forced. Like, what's their real problem with each other? I mean, AJ Styles is pissed because he overstepped his boundaries when he came back. He attacked LA Knight. But I think what Triple H is doing, he's trying to give LA Knight an opportunity to have that great match to get people in here when he wrestles, because that's been the biggest criticism about LA Knight, is that he hasn't had a match to get you in the feels.
Yeah.
It doesn't help that you book him in his two biggest matches with the Money in the Bank, and you dick teased everybody and gave it to Damian Priest, which is still a glaring missed opportunity and a glaring mistake, since they're probably going to have Damian Priest cashing in on Gunther or whoever the Intercontinental champion is sometime shortly after WrestleMania. I don't know. I mean, Damian Priest is definitely somebody that should not have that Money in the Bank briefcase. It should have been LA Knight. And then this match with AJ Styles isn't such a whatever. But right now, it is what it is. They're not going to probably continue this feud after the match is over. LA Knight's going to win. AJ Styles is going to go out there and try to make a star out of him in terms of in-ring and have a great match. They've wrestled each other plenty of times in the past. So they got to go out and have a banger match, and that's what I think Triple H wants, but it's not what we wanted. It's just not what we wanted. So that one isn't even shoehorned again. It's the same with the Intercontinental title match. Not the match we wanted.
Yeah, and this is like two, I don't know, sort of blemishes, I think, with Triple H in terms of the way we viewed this card, because like you and I were sort of fantasy booking this card about a month or two ago ourselves. And we were like amazed by the possibilities, but yet here we are talking about these sort of like scenarios, and they're a little bit underwhelming,
100%.
unfortunately. So, yeah, I mean, I was really hoping. I obviously would have preferred LA Knight have the money in the bank, cashed in, or have the opportunity to cash it in, even at WrestleMania. Just the missed opportunity with the feuds as well, because I think he would have carried it better than Damian Priest also. And it's a little bit of a shame and a lost opportunity here. I'm sure, like as you mentioned, hey, it's going to be a good match. It'll definitely probably be a decent moment for LA Knight, I would imagine. And AJ Styles is an incredible worker, always has been. But yeah, overall, it's disappointing that we're not going to go see him, if not the world title, have an opportunity against Logan Paul, where I think the promos between those two would have been pretty damn good. And then having LA Knight sort of leave that stadium with some sort of gold held over his head. Nice moment. And you would have had an incredible moment and just a place going nuts for their favorite, megastar here. So yeah, that's it's kind of crappy. Like why are we still waiting on that moment for him at this point? He's so damn over.
You can make the argument he's main evented 2 different pay-per-views. And you can make the argument he's gotten a couple world title shots, and he was in Elimination Chamber. So I get some of the arguments that can be made as to him being booked, but again, if he had that money in the bank, it's electric every time he gets on screen. And Damian Priest, look, he's part of Judgment Day. He's a tag team champion. He didn't need it. And apparently that was a Vince call. Vince was still calling a lot of shots there. Triple H figured out how to get there, but Vince said this is what he wanted. So I think that was a Vince call getting Priest on there. But if it was a Triple H call, it's the biggest mistake of his tenure so far. So yeah, I'm with you. Yeah. And again, not the match we wanted, just like the Intercontinental title.
Yeah. Let's go to this glaring one. We have Dominic and what's that guy's name again?
Santos Escobar, the leader of
Santos
Facción del Fantasma.
Yeah, who actually, in a couple of his promos, like I actually started rooting for him over Rey Mysterio here.
He's LWO. Great. I like Santos Escobar a lot, actually. Yeah.
So we have Santos Escobar and Dominic here with going against Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee. Out of nowhere, if you will. I'm sure, I don't know, this probably open up one of the nights, I'm assuming.
I don't think it's an opener. They usually try to put a big banger on the opener.
Second match.
It might be yeah, it's like a second or third. It's not going to be because what they've been doing is they have like one of the championship matches usually lead off, or matches that they're really excited about. Whether the women, I think you're going to have second night 2. It'll probably be Seth and Drew.
Yeah,
and that will also give them enough time to kind of after they're done with their match. That'll give them enough time if either one of them is going to be part of the main event with Cody and Roman as well. So I think that opens up night 1 for sure, or night 2 for sure, to be honest with you. That match, I don't care about. I do not care. It's an inconsequential jerk-off tag match between your best luchadors. Okay. It's not WrestleMania caliber, and it's shoehorned. They've been building this feud, and what are you doing? And maybe it's a SmackDown main event. But it definitely shouldn't be a match for WrestleMania. Again, I want to see monster matches, marquee matches that I really can't wait to see. And this is another one that's a beer break. I don't care. And I like Santos Escobar. And again, Dragon Lee is really good. He's as good as a lot of the luchadors that we're seeing, particularly in AEW with the CMLL invasion, he fits right along with those kind of guys, but he's one of the best luchadors, but he's certainly not the best. There's a lot of other guys that are like that. So if you're used to that kind of style, Dragon Lee's not going to be so crazy. If we're seeing Commander and El Vikingo and some of those guys do some of the stuff that they do, and Rey Fenix, Dragon Lee is okay. He's good. And Rey Mysterio, he doesn't do anything new. He's been doing the same moves for 20 years. God bless him. He's a legend. But this is shoehorned. Escobar just beat Rey in a one-on-one match. Like, why do we have to have an inconsequential tag match? Now, it looks like they're building some kind of rift between Judgment Day. Dominic might be leaving Judgment Day and joining El Fantasma de la Facción or whatever. I don't know. It's either, they got to come up with a
at least you
cooler
tried.
name. It's Facción El Fantasma, right? Is that their names?
You got me, man.
See, that's a part of the problem too. And so you have them, and so you're going to have a luchador match, which, again, I'm not excited about this match at all. This match should not be on WrestleMania. I hope to Christ it's on the free hour before the show. I really do, because that's where it should be.
It's
I'm
good
not watching.
match.
I am not watching that match. I am literally going to go in the bathroom, either take a poop, get hammered, or I'm going to be doing something other than watching that match. Because I don't want it. And I don't think many people do in terms of what a WrestleMania match should be. And that is shoehorned, 100%.
Yeah, so that's another, basically bullet point that, we sort of picked up on with what Triple H is, having here in terms of this card and showing us it as it's evolving here. So a little bit less than overwhelming, I'd say.
You both, and by the way, I can see AJ Styles and LA Knight having a match that no one really cares about too. And I can see a lot of lulls. And again, you don't want to lose your crowd. You don't want to have 2 or 3 matches that people don't really care about because it's going to be hard to get them back. Now, I think they'll be fine. It's going to be Philadelphia, and obviously the top of the card is what everyone's really excited about, Cody's story and The Rock and everything going on there. So maybe that's why Triple H did it, but I want every single match going into WrestleMania to mean something, and this one I don't think does.
Yeah.
Now maybe I'm being unfair. Maybe the standards are too high for what I want in a WrestleMania card. I don't know.
But it's just the level that's going to be probably obtained with this bloodline storyline is just going to go and overwhelm the rest of the card to a certain extent. So, I mean, I would have rather seen the Street Profits in there as well, some way or another. It doesn't look like they're even involved in the tag team title match, which is sort of disappointing.
It's stupid. Burying your best tag team, arguably your best tag team.
Yeah, they're great. They're great. Yeah, I don't get
top
it.
4 anyway, easily.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's just stupid and disappointing.
They've buried them. The Street Profits are such talents, and they are buried. It's been a disaster what they've done with Bobby Lashley, and Bobby Lashley too. It's been an unmitigated disaster what they've done with that group. Disaster, terrible, awful, garbage.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't even defend it.
The Final Testament isn't blowing my skirt up either, if I can be honest.
Yeah, it's just both of these, like, they have sort of 2 mediocre factions going at it, and I'm not into it all that much.
And the talent's there, but they're not putting them in a position to be their best selves. The Street Profits need to be cutting promos. They need to be front and center. And right now they're not doing any of it. And they haven't been winning. This fact with Bobby and the Street Profits, the whole thing was predominant on them being dominant and setting the world on fire. They haven't done any of it. And the booking, and you got to wonder, is Karrion Kross, is he going to get over on the main roster? Because he hasn't done it yet. And he's been given good opportunities now. Still not. He had the thing with AJ, didn't go anywhere. The thing with Shinsuke, I think, before he turned heel. And now he has this thing with the Street Profits. Nothing's going right with Karrion Kross. People don't care. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's just is what it is at this point.
Yeah. I just it's hard to defend that as well. And you and I even discussed that when he was in NXT, I wasn't amazed by him, but I sort of felt like he might be a decent henchman, if you will, or a heater of some sorts, even still with Scarlett. But I don't know. We'll see what happens there. But it's been a bit of a downward spiral there.
Yeah, they're not even booked for a match yet. They'll probably have a match of some sort, possibly on that preview show as well. But we'll see.
Yeah. But yeah, and then other than that, I mean, I think we're okay in terms of like matches that make sense otherwise with WrestleMania.
Yeah, I mean, I initially, because of some of the matches I'm not really fond of or care about, and also some of the matches that could have been, I think that's why we have this little bit of a feeling. But again, when you're talking about the electricity and the excitement of what they're getting from the top of the card, it's incredible. But the tag team match, they're just throwing it all together. Let's have a 6-man ladder match. Everyone, it's going to be 6-team ladder match. Let's have a big plane crash where R-Truth can get his first WrestleMania victory. He'll be he and The Miz will probably reach up and they'll be the winners on that one too. R-Truth gets his win. Everyone's going to bust their ass. But again, it's a match that it's just going to be a ladder match for whatever. And I'm sure there's going to be some great spots and all that. I really hope that they can get the crowd into it. And it's not going to be one of those situations where the crowd doesn't really care, despite the fact the dangers that are going to be happening in a ladder match. They've done a good job of not having too many ladder matches recently, except for Money in the Bank. So they haven't been watered down quite as much as possibly in the past it has been. But again, it was shoehorned. It was a complete shoehorn situation to get as many people on the card as possible. And not having the Street Profits in that match is a disaster. So I'm assuming they're going to, like I said before, they're going to have some kind of match with the Final Testament with Bobby Lashley. But that's another one that I'm not excited about. And also I'm not excited about Judgment Day's run. Again, I'm not an advocate of Judgment Day. I think they have gotten a lot more time and booked a lot stronger than I think they should have been. And I guess and that's the other thing. They're having some kind of dissension where they're starting to question each other. Rhea Damian Priest is like, did you know about Dom? Well, Rhea actually asked everybody else. Did anyone know Dom was going to go out there with the Facción El Fantasma? Nobody knew. and then Damian, first of all, if you're banging this kid, how come you don't know, mommy? Mommy, you got to get your boy in check. Come on. But anyway, Damian Priest asks Rhea Ripley, is there anything we need to talk about? You want to tell us? And then Rhea turns back and does the same thing. But where is this dissension coming from? Like, I know they had a little bit of dissension a couple months ago about who was the possible leader, but that kind of got pushed away. And now it's like, what's the problem with the judges? How come they don't trust each other anymore? Like, what's going on?
Why are they imploding?
Make it make sense. And Finn Balor's a mid-carder now. No one cares about him. A lot of people don't know the difference between him and JD McDonough at this point. Jesus Christ.
Hey, I gotta tell you, man, the one thing I'll say about JD McDonough,
great worker.
He was in that match with Ricochet. Yeah, he sells like beautifully. Holy shit. That Ricochet hit him with a Canadian Destroyer. It's probably one of the best ones I've ever seen.
Yeah, they
great.
They put on some really great matches. JD and Ricochet have done a good job.
Yeah.
In terms of bell to bell, they're great. That's an AEW caliber match right there when AEW is good, not when they're having botches. And they have green women and rando independent indie guys botching every collision and rampage.
Yeah. I was just and I'm glad he's getting an opportunity. He after Rhea, he might be my favorite part of Judgment Day, actually. So
mine's R-Truth.
Yeah, I got to give him credit as well. He is sort of an honorary member.
I got those T-shirts. But the thing is, we all know who's winning that one too, R-Truth and Miz. So that it loses a lot of its luster. I'm sure Johnny Gargano and I'm sure everyone's going to bust their ass and it's going to be a great match. but it's not one that gets me in the feels. And there's not a lot of the matches that do, and I wish there were. Like Gable and Gunther, I would really have an emotional thing. Like I honestly kind of want Gunther to beat Sammy, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah,
Sammy doesn't deserve to beat
for him.
Gunther, God damn it.
No. Not in the same stratosphere.
But yeah, I mean, again, from top to bottom, I don't think this is as strong of a card as we could have had, for sure. But hey, we'll accentuate the positive and eliminate the negative, or bury the negative. We usually just bury it, but that's what we do, so it's okay.
So with that in mind, maybe we could turn our focus over to our friends at AEW.
AEW. Well, Swerve is officially going to be challenging Samoa Joe. We got that.
You know, you mentioned Swerve getting the title match here. I mean, it's to be expected. I'm a little, you know what? Like, I kind of wish Takeshita didn't have to drop to him.
Takeshi's fine though, because he's been on a run of. He beat Kenny recently, but he lost to Ospreay. He's losing a lot of top matches, which is what he has done most of his career. Like when he first came up, he was losing to top guys all left and right. You know, he lost to Danielson, lost to Kenny when he first came out, and was actually on a dark, ironically enough. You know, he's lost. I think he lost to Takeshita, to Moxley. He lost to Danielson. I think he might even lost to Claudio as well. But he typically loses to big names, except he finally beat Kenny. So, but I think Takeshi's going to be.
Yeah, there was a change in his character. Became the alpha under Callis's tutelage. And again, it just you can't find somebody else to go and, you know, I don't know, compete with Swerve where it doesn't necessarily, because that's the other thing too. He's lost basically two singles matches back to back here to Ospreay and Swerve, which is basically saying he doesn't belong in that realm. Where if you watch the guy work, he belongs in that realm.
Well, that's what I think. I think most people watching it realize he does belong, and he's still very young, and he's got a long way to go. So that's why I think he'll be fine, because I think you'll see him start. I think he's probably going to be the marquee guy in the Don Callis family if they turn Ospreay heel. I mean, babyface. I mean, he already is a babyface, but he's still in the Don Callis family, and he's too popular to keep in that situation. They should probably, maybe coming up or what have you, have them turn on Ospreay, and then you could build Ospreay's babyface character feuding with Don Callis. And then you would, I don't know if it's going to be this year or the following, but you would assume Ospreay is going to get some kind of world championship victory at an All In. You would assume that's in the cards either this year or next year. It might be too soon this year. You might want Swerve, if he does beat Samoa Joe, you might want him to have the title a little bit longer, especially being the first Black World Champion. They might not want Swerve to only have a 3.5 month or 3 month title reign, which would be the case if he dropped the belt. Say if he beats Samoa Joe and he loses to Ospreay. What you could do, though, is you could have Samoa Joe beat Swerve, but that would be a kick in the balls. I feel like Swerve's got to win at this point in time, you know? He's got this organic build. He deserves it. He's a great wrestler. He's improved on the mic to an extraordinary extent. And then you could honestly turn him heel shortly after he wins against Ospreay. Because obviously Swerve can be a top-notch, fantastic heel. The guy's done it before. And he might even want to do that. It's interesting on where you go with that. But I don't know. But you need a top heel, too. And also, where does MJF fall back in? There are reports, a more recent report came out that he did sign an extension with Tony Pryor, which I've always felt. And then I started creeping doubt in my mind because Tony has been so bad with having a world champion and a TNT champion without a contract, which is insanity to me in this day and age. So I started thinking about that. Maybe Tony didn't, but I still stuck to my guns. I think MJF is with the company still. Where does he fall in to where all this happens? Does he just go right after Adam Cole when he comes back? It's probably where he would go instead of going back after the world title. I don't know if Ospreay gets the world championship and it's all in. Just because I don't think they want to step on Swerve's toes in his organic rise to the world championship.
I would do it. I would totally do it. In England, especially, yeah, I wouldn't even hesitate. Um, listen, it's a great thing to become world champ, but he's the best, man, Ospreay. So like that's where I'm like, and you know what, you can build a feud between the two of them, and also as you mentioned, you alluded to, they're both baby faces. One of them's got a turn. Ospreay's so over. He's even more over than Swerve.
I would agree with that.
So yeah, I just yeah. So but getting to Ospreay, I got to tell you, I was watching Dynamite, and Ospreay was going against Shibata, which basically seems to be like one of your like typical like New Japan matches, which I'm sure there's an audience for it. Not necessarily my cup of tea. However, I have to say, with all due respect to both guys, it was my least favorite Ospreay match. And I don't say it's because it was bad. My feeling is Ospreay has been so incredible, and that crowd is at such a high level. And what they did was he is going toe-to-toe with Shibata. Shibata no-sold him, I don't know how many times, almost like John Moxley was like, hey, man, I think you're doing these no-sells a little bit too much, like when he saw that match. And I'm like, in the grand scheme of things, Ospreay should be coming out there against a formidable opponent, hit maybe 2 or 3 big moves, win the match somewhat quickly, and then jump on the mic and then cut a promo again on Danielson. And that crowd would just be going nuts. And it's like a great start. But what they did is they gave us this tactical wrestler who basically clipped Ospreay's wings, if you will. And I'm just like, I knew, and we all knew Ospreay was going to win. And it's about respect and all that. And I can appreciate that. But just this moment in time, I didn't need to see that. I didn't want to see it. I don't want anybody coming close to that guy right now. And here they had Shibata, who you could probably tell me more about his lore and all that, but he's no Will Ospreay.
I'm not a big guy on Shibata either. I'm not
Okay.
in terms of New Japan guys. He has been there a long time. He's been in New Japan for a very long time. Former world champion. But I don't love Shibata at all. I think he's like a vanilla New Japan guy. And that's what they do. And by the way, that's how their matches go. It's no selling. It's let's punch each other as hard as they can. And that's the big formula Tony does. He's done it with Ishii. He's done it with Minoru Suzuki. He's done it with Shibata. And there's been a couple others where he brings in these legends from Japan. They go out and have banger matches with their top guys, but they always lose the big matches. Every single time. Ishii lost to Danielson and Moxley and Castagnoli every time they wrestled. Shibata has lost to Danielson and Ospreay. Suzuki, same thing. They don't win their matches. They just bring them in and they hope there are enough people that know them. The problem is that people that don't, a lot of the American audience doesn't know who Shibata is. Shibata is a top New Japan star if you go back the last 10 years. I don't think he's a top 4 or 5 star now in New Japan. Maybe he is now. I haven't watched New Japan a lot last year. But the fact is, that's what New Japan wrestling is. It's a lot of no selling, a lot of hitting, and you try to have some unique spots toward the end where you kind of hit a peak, and you try to have that climax of the match be outstanding after they build it up. And that's what they did. It was literally your standard run-of-the-mill New Japan match. New Japan matches don't typically have squash matches. They're always competitive, with the exception unless they're really trying to put somebody massive over in a big way and getting them a big push. So that's how Tony books these matches. In fact, Tony probably doesn't book them. He says, "Will you go over? You guys figure it out." And Will Ospreay cut his teeth in New Japan and Rev Pro, he's worked Shibata probably dozens and dozens of times. They had the best match that they could have. But if you don't like New Japan Pro Wrestling, that style particularly, you're not going to like it. And if you are tired of how Tony books all the New Japan guys that come over, then this wasn't for you. I didn't really care for this match either. It was good, but inconsequential, and nothing really crazy happened. I didn't need to see it. And it's not one of the matches you go back and watch. A lot of the AEW people loved it. Thought it was a great match. The Danielson one was a little bit better, but again, great match with no consequences. So why do I care? because there's great matches all over the place.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people really being very positive about in terms of the reviews of it, calling it like match of the year type candidate, all that sort of stuff. And there's a market for it, there's an audience for it, but just it was to start off the show. I felt like we immediately got spun into a lull, and with the pace of the match and everything else. And then after that, I'm just like, okay, I've been pretty obvious about what my thoughts about Ospreay, and I just wanted to have that heavy hitter, high flying match, and then cut a great promo where the crowd was into it. Because honestly, the crowd was pretty, like not that great, honestly. Pretty quiet at times. They have electricity in their hands, and I just feel like they, extinguished it as soon as they could.
Yeah, and New Japan matches do have lulls. They really do, unless you're talking Kenny and Okada or one of those, or maybe a Super Junior match. A lot of the matches do have lulls. There's a lot of heat. There's a lot of there's some amidst the no selling in spots. There's also a lot of deliberate actions as well. So again, I'm not going to kill it for it. It was a good match, but it wasn't something that I'm interested in. So it's all good. And obviously, if people loved it, the AEW gatekeepers, who are the base of your audience, they love it. Same thing with Orange Cassidy. You're gonna have to grin and bear it, my friend.
Yeah, I know, and I'm accepting it. And I'm just letting you know what as I mentioned, this is what I would have done with it. But man, and I'm just looking forward to. I'm looking forward to the Danielson Ospreay match, and just can't wait to get to that at this point too. Besides that,
what happened with Ricky Starks? Ricky Starks, they thought he had a concussion, or they thought he was paralyzed. He kind of stinger. And then, so they were supposed to win, I think, Fightful Select. I had to look it up because you were very obtuse on the internet with my questioning.
I you know what? I was like, if he doesn't trust me, it's okay.
I do trust you, but I want to know where you got it from. Did you get it from that jerk off Nick Hausman, or did you get it from Fightful Select? Because sometimes you bring me shit from him or other people that we found out it was bullshit. It wasn't true. So, that's why I always ask where you got your source from, brother. Not that I don't trust you, but, sometimes you don't
feel like
vet
I'm,
your sources,
a little bit of the fact checker.
You don't vet your sources.
It's... Hey, listen, it was out there.
I looked it up. It was Fightful Select, so I was fine. I looked it up. And I deleted all the posts because I was questioning it. But it still was weird. It's still, look, live television, live match. Ricky's okay, thank God. I thought it looked like he was supposed to kick out of the one roll up, and he didn't.
And
the crowd turned. The crowd just started booing. When you fuck up a finish, crowd doesn't like that.
The ref should have just counted the 3.
That's exactly what you're supposed to. As the referee, that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And then it was fine because then the finish was weird. It was a weak Hurricanrana. Not Hurricanrana. It was a weak Hurricane DDT. Or whatever they call it.
See again, I don't understand what's up with the referees in these matches. I've seen Moxley wrestle with a concussion. I've seen others as well. And then you have a situation here where there's a chance this guy might be concussed. And hey, instead of just counting 3, since his shoulders are pinned to begin with, go and do that DVT move with the guy that might have the concussion. It's totally unnecessary.
And it happens in AEW a lot. I mean, the same thing happened with Adam Cole.
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It happens in every other Sammy Guevara match. Someone gets concussed.
Yeah. This is why Sammy's not there right now.
So good for Private Party, because that was just so awkward. And my point was, if Ricky Starks put over Private Party, if Ricky Starks put over Top Flight, because Top Flight, good for them, they'll be able to go out and have a banger match with FTR. We are going to get Young Bucks FTR at Dynasty, obviously, where we assume our favorite EVPs, Matthew and Nicholas Jackson. You got to show some respect, put some respect and give them their God-given names. And you would assume that the EVPs win in a dastardly way against FTR. But I'm hoping with the match being 3 weeks away, I'm hoping that we have a really good build with these two teams, and let's get some personal shit going on. Let's have the Young Bucks attack them from behind. Let's get the hatred of these two teams having for each other, and let's get in. Let's have a program. Let's have a 3 or 6 month program. Let's do it. And I'm glad FTR is rising back to prominence in the tag team division after losing the titles. They just were like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So, we'll see. But you would assume FTR was going to win anyway, going to the finals, even just to beat Big Bill and get that redemption about Big Bill and Ricky Starks again. So you would assume that was the case, since they weren't doing it with the Blackpool Combat Club. So, yeah, it just was, because I am of the opinion if Ricky Stark starts getting buried, it's a telltale sign he is out. Because that's obviously a guy that a lot of people think is going to go join his best friend with Cody in WWE. And you and I both said he's probably going to be an NXT champion at some point in 2025 if his contract expires soon.
Oh, he can easily be the world champion there. I mean, he's got a lot of charisma. He's a very good wrestler. And that definitely, that smaller pond, he can own that place for sure. So, but yeah, I mean, again, we're talking about the safety of these wrestlers and all that. And here's just another example where unfortunately something happened here. Referee should have just, if he's not getting his shoulder up, just count to 3. That's it. It's his job.
And it's also inexperience. I mean, WWE has dealt with that. Their protocols are a lot more specific. They probably had massive training. It's a big corporation. They have massive training, and each and every one of the referees know exactly every single solitary protocol. That's something that Tony probably has to look at and get his referees trained to handle these situations a little bit better than what we've seen, or at least have a system in place where you're supporting them, earpiece or whatever the case may be, and you make a call. And again, that comes with Tony only being in the business for 5 years. It comes with a lot of these referees might not have as much experience as the ones in WWE, and their training hasn't been as good. So it's something that AEW definitely needs to improve upon, for sure. Matt Hardy might leave. Matt Hardy might leave too. Are you really sad by that?
It's my understanding he's already put out there that AEW's offered him a contract, and he's acting as if he's not sure what he wants to do. I don't care really at this point. I think Matt Hardy, it might be best suited just to retire or do like an occasional thing.
Go to TNA again. That's where you had your best run anyway.
But and then honestly with Matt, often where he's most desired is usually when he's attached at the hip to his brother, and his brother is less than reliable. And honestly, considering the way he's wrestled in the last year and a half or so, I wouldn't miss it as well. It's sometimes you got to move on.
Yeah, and for Matt to have a problem with the way they're booked. Look, you were going to be the world tag team champions, and your brother fucked up again, and his mid to late 40s driving drunk in a day and age where he's a millionaire and there's Ubers and there's Lyft. When we were growing up, Vladi, we drove drunk. Oh yeah, we did, because taxis were expensive and it was worth the ride. It was worth the shot. Now Lyft is a quarter, is a fraction of a price. You're a millionaire as it is, even if it's an hour ride, it's worth the Uber. And he's just such a self-destructive whack job, and still has major problems with alcohol and chemicals. He fucked up. This wasn't a kid, though. He's in his mid to late 40s. Mid 40s. I think he's 46, 47. He's in his mid 40s. He's a grown-ass man at this point in time. And he's the reason you aren't getting booked. And the fans turned on him too, because it's the same old story. You can't blame AEW for not booking you guys on top of the tag team division when you were given the opportunity and you pissed it away because your brother got in a car wasted. Again.
Yeah, so if I was Tony Khan, I wouldn't even offered him anything. But
100% agree with
my feeling on it. Yeah,
I just saw that.
Thank you. Time to move on.
Made some waves this past weekend, so I just wanted.
Yeah, plus, and Matt Hardy showed up at a recent Raw where it was taking place at Raleigh, and he's got his picture taken there and all that sort of stuff. And his wife is going live on Instagram with it. So, of course, he's looking at going up up his value and worth. I mean, seemed to have worked for CM Punk.
I don't think it's going to work for Matt Hardy, especially in the manner in which Jeff Hardy left WWE. So they don't necessarily have a home to
go. He's like, I'm out.
I'm out, guys. Peace, dog. And then he wouldn't give a drug test. And we were actually blaming WWE at the time. In retrospect, WWE was probably right in everything that every way that they handled the Jeff Hardy situation. But I don't know. But anyway, I just wanted to touch on that with Matt Hardy this week, because who cares? Because other people are talking about other guys that might be leaving AEW soon. People like Miro and Malachi Black, all the rumors that are going around. And Malachi Black's, at least he's been on TV. Miro, it's not. I can't say you're going to miss him because he hasn't really been on TV for 2 years. So it's hard to miss somebody who hasn't been used. Like, we're not going to miss Miro because he's not there. We're not going to miss Matt Hardy because he's not really there. And when he was, it wasn't that great. We're not going to miss a lot of these guys. So, and AEW's got such deep thing. AEW can lose some people, believe me.
Yeah, what's your thoughts of what they're starting to develop here between Adam Copeland and the House of Black?
Well, let's go back to that. I'll be another critical of AEW. I'm glad you asked that. My first reaction, because Collision was a nothing burger for the most part, other than the beginning, the Copeland stuff. I think there were Clean had a promo, which was kind of whatever. But overall, you had a lot of inconsequential matches. Another rando trios match that means nothing. That was the main event. I don't know who you think is sticking around to see a rando main event with basically Ring of Honor mid-carders against two members of the Blackpool Combat Club and your favorite New Japan Pro Wrestler, Shibata. Inconsequential trios match. I'm not sure who you're trying to fucking get you to watch at 9:40 on a Saturday night. Who's going to stick around and watch that? It's a joke. But here we go. We're going to have another inconsequential trios match for a pay-per-view. I don't understand him. I don't like it. My first reaction was Malachi Black and Adam Copeland. Thank you. Give Malachi Black an opportunity to have a great singles program with another top guy. Wow. It's something you haven't done yet outside of his intro with Cody. You have wasted this guy. So I'm excited. Boom, boom, boom. And then, of course, you add Eddie Kingston and you add Mark Briscoe, who are ironically fighting for the World Championship of Ring of Honor this Friday at Supercard of Honor. And now we're going to have an inconsequential trios match on a pay-per-view between Eddie Kingston, the aforementioned Eddie Kingston, Mark Briscoe, and Adam Copeland against the House of Black, Brody King, Malachi, and, of course, Buddy Matthews. Or is it Buddy? Yeah, Buddy Matthews now, right? He's Murphy when he's in WWE. So, again, it's not something that I look forward to. Like, I'm supposed to – I mean, it's a Collision main event. Why is that on a pay-per-view when you could have Adam Copeland and Malachi Black? Now, they might be leading to that for Double or Nothing in Las Vegas. That might be the case. I am hoping. So I'm hoping this leads toward a big feud with Adam Copeland and the House of Black, particularly Malachi Black. If that's where we're going with it, I'm on board. But if we're just going to have inconsequential trios matches over and over and over again, spare me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just cut to the chase at this point, and then just let those two guys have a feud.
Give me spooky Malachi versus spooky Edge. Ooh, spooky. Ooh.
Adam Copeland will be like, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, Malachi. However, at one point in time, I dabbled with black magic as well.
Ever heard of the Judgment Day?
Have you ever heard of the Brood?
Them too. Remember, but he tried bringing that spooky shit back for the Judgment Day run as
Vince
well.
wasn't having it.
No, it didn't work, obviously. And then I still don't think Judgment Day works. I think they're really we already talked about that, but yeah, I don't like the Judgment Day. I think they're just a mid-card faction that doesn't have outside of Rhea Ripley. They're all mid-carders, and prove me wrong. You could try to make him look. I know you're trying to make Damian Priest a main eventer. He's not a main eventer yet. He's not, and nobody wants to even close to the World Championship title picture right now. So
yeah, I really don't want to see him cashing in on anybody.
I mean, I have an idea of what might happen at WrestleMania. I think he might cash in on the Intercontinental Champion, who that is. But we'll talk about that for our WrestleMania preview show, which is next week. We have a lot of fun things planned for you next week. We're gonna do it, and hopefully we're gonna be live, or at least I'll be live with possibly. Well, I don't want to say it because who knows, he might flake out. But we have some fun things planned for WrestleMania and everything looking into what we got going on. So a lot of fun things. We are rocking and rolling here on High Spots and Cheap Pops. We're blowing up, so to speak. Our subscribers are going up. Our Facebook page is growing, and we're keeping on pumping out some really great content. The very best pro wrestling talk on the internet. Period. Screw Cornette and last.
According to these two guys.
Yeah, well, that's all that matters. Our belief in ourselves. Doesn't matter what anyone else thinks.
Absolutely.
We're certainly better than Bischoff and we're certainly better than Bischoff and the Podfather. Yeah, dude, Bischoff has his followers too, man. Like these wackadoos who think he's like the God's gift to professional wrestling. Same thing with people that love Vince Russo. I mean, they buy hook, line, and sinker all the bullshit that these two clowns tell their followers. It's amazing. Amazing. Some dude was giving Bischoff credit for factions in WCW. Like factions didn't happen before the NWO. Like it was all because Eric Bischoff. Like there was a land full of WCW, no factions. And Eric Bischoff said, hey, we should have groups together. Never happened before. Like the Fabulous Freebirds or the Dangerous Alliance or the Four Horsemen or the Russians or, the list goes on and on and on of factions, particularly during the Crockett days. So he's saying that it's ridiculous how some of these sycophants to these, especially those two, and what they really think about it. Cornette to a lesser extent, but Cornette's done a hell of a lot more and lasted in the business a hell of a lot more than those two. And Cornette also never claimed to be the smartest guy in the business, and I don't think Cornette has delusions of grandeur. Probably not the happiest guy in the world when he talks about AEW, but I digress.
No, he definitely is a hard ass to say the least on his critiques of them for sure. Yeah. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I wonder how much it is because they're kind of look. I'm not crediting Tony for anything he did because his dad made all the billions of dollars. Let's be real. But I feel like that they are just so freaking annoyed that this jerk-off Mark fan is possibly going to have a bigger footprint on the business than any of them will, with the outside exception of Cornette. But you can make the argument Cornette never had a company last this long on national television like Tony Khan has. So I know Tony Khan has the means and the ability to get his show on television because of the money that he produces and the ties that the Khan family has made with multimedia companies, being an owner of the NFL. But at some point, I think they're just pissed off that this guy is able to do something that probably all three of them wish they could do. And now they're just all sitting on their podcast, not really having any impact on the business, except when they talk about AEW. And then they get all their clicks when they talk shit on AEW. That's not a coincidence that when those three guys talk about AEW, their downloads go way up, and that's why they do it. That's just working us, folks. They're all just working wrestling fans. And to quote what Shawn Michaels said, the human professional wrestling fan is very easy to manipulate. Exactly what Shawn Michaels said. That's what the disrespect he has for us fans. Not like Bret Hart. Fuck Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, he doesn't have a high opinion of you.
Hates me. Happy Resurrection Day, Shawn Michaels.
Oh.
Some of us aren't heathens on here, Body Daddy.
Yeah, now the audience is wondering, who's the heathen?
No, we're joking. We're joking, obviously. But yeah, I don't know. I forgot where I went. I went on that rant on Shawn Michaels, and I totally forgot what I was saying.
Yeah, I'm just about to go and take a call from my priest on that last segment. I'm just kidding. Yeah.
You haven't seen that priest since that. You haven't seen that priest since that moment in the pew. On the pew.
Oh.
Never mind.
On the pew.
On the pew. Right on the pew.
Listen.
Should we go
as you
down
mentioned with those
priests
three
molesting
podcasts,
children way? Should we go down that way? No, we're not going to go down that route.
I think standards and practice would probably kick our asses for that.
Way to bring the show in, Vladi, and keep us under control. We're not trying to go off the rails here any more than we already have.
Yeah, that'd be good to avoid. But yeah, regarding those guys, absolutely. I mean, but if you can imagine, if they had Shad Khan's money in line for them, what some of them could have done. And listen, I in terms of Bischoff, how can I put this? He was like good for television, and he was at the right place at the right time. It's really the way I look at it.
Got lucky with one storyline too. Let's be real.
Yeah, and it was great, and because I also saw how it just got really bad under his watch too, and how they just kept on adding people to it, and then there was it just stalled, and we're gonna split them now. Now it's the Wolfpack versus NWO Black and White. It's just I mean, for all the good that there was plenty of bad as well. So.
And then they tried to recreate it again with the finger poke of doom and just rehash the whole thing again because he was a one-trick pony. And once WWE counterpunched him, he was done. He was having a mental breakdown, and so he got sent home. And then and as he had the ship heading toward the iceberg, they bring in Vince Russo, who instead of turning the ship around, stepped on the freaking gas. And then Vince McMahon is on Monday Night Nitro buying their asses out in March of 2001.
Yeah. Amazing time in history it was.
But Bischoff is just as culpable, not his own. I think Russo is very culpable, and I think obviously the Time Warner merger was really culpable. But they all had pieces to it. And then we're going back to the Bischoff sycophants. None of them will give him any. No, he's not the reason. It was all Vince Russo. It was all the merger. Bischoff did everything he could. No, he didn't. He was terrible at his job. Once Vince McMahon and Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, and the Attitude Era counterpunched, he was done. Glass jaw like Ronda Rousey.
Yeah.
Done. Exposed. And they gave him another opportunity with Russo again, and he failed again when he came back the second time. He failed again. TNA, he failed. All of you sycophants that he listens to will say, oh, no, he didn't. This is the thing that happened. No, you listen and believe everything he says, and he's full of shit and half the time, and he's lying the other half. And then they believe him anyway.
Yeah. But you know what? One observation I'd like to make here, too, is that between Bischoff and Tony Khan and Twitter, these two guys can't help each other with each other. As soon as something happens, they both want to go at it. And it's, it's some sort of fodder for entertainment at this point. And I'm just amazed that, a billionaire like someone in the Khan family would be going at a millionaire in such a way. It just, it just makes me sort of smirk. And I'm like, look at the world that we live in here.
Yeah. And by the way, Bischoff is making more money on it because he's getting more downloads and he's getting more people talking about him. Right. So Bischoff, this is exactly what Bischoff wants. He wants more from Tony. Bischoff has said he's having fun with it. Yeah. And by the way, I actually agree with a lot of the things Bischoff says about Tony Khan. It's just so hypocritical when he talks about how Tony should just shut up and let the wrestlers wrestle. Jerk off. You booked yourself in a match against Vince McMahon on a pay-per-view. People paid $40 to see you have Vince McMahon counted out on pay-per-view. So stop with your, he shouldn't do such things. I would never do those things. You're full of shit, Bischoff. You are 10 times more obnoxious than Tony Khan is. 10 times more. But you're holding him to task when you were worse. And your little 83 weeks is what you got. It's great. But you mortgaged the future of WCW to get that 83 weeks. Because your bullshit guaranteed contracts with creative freedom or with certain guys having certain powers really was made WCW a pariah in the world of Time Warner and AOL because of those stupid contracts when you mortgaged the future of the company to get your 83 weeks, which you are still leeching off to this day. Don't get me started on Bischoff.
I think we did get started. There's no going back.
Well, I had some conversations on the internet this past week on our Facebook and our fan page, and I've been interacting with a lot of really awesome people, but definitely disagree with a lot of the Bischoff sycophants there. Now, I'm also real hard on Bischoff too, and maybe I am unfair with him. I don't know, but it's hard for me to take him saying that Tony needs to grow up when he booked himself in a match against Vince McMahon, and he's given away finishes of world championship matches. It's embarrassing.
That was bullshit. Yeah, that was bullshit. It was classless. And also, he had a roster that had some of the great wrestlers of their time on that roster, including Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, Jericho, the one that shall remain nameless. Then you also had Flair and Arn Anderson for a little bit of part of that. Sting, of course, DDP. Scott Steiner. I mean, Booker T. He had plenty of weapons and bullets in the chamber to kind of go and against NWO, and it was just so focused on Sting. And then after that moment with Sting, they had no idea what the fuck to do.
They couldn't get up after that counterpunch, and Bischoff was exposed to who he really is. Period.
Yeah. And you know what? I mean, I didn't even mention Goldberg because of obvious reasons, but the fact that Bret Hart got there and then got injured, that really didn't help matters. But the only way it would have like really sort of destroyed matters is if Bret Hart was the guy that was supposed to help Sting take apart the NWO, if you will. But again, you had DDP there already, and you had other countless names, as I just mentioned, most of them Hall of Famers.
Yeah, and Bischoff didn't do anything with half those guys. Hey, how about this one? Stone Cold Steve Austin. Right. Ever heard of him?
Yeah.
Bischoff fired him. Bischoff takes that one on the chin. I will admit that. Sometimes some of his mistakes are just so blatant, he can't lie his way out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, he stones it.
Yeah. That one you have to. And he does. And the funny thing is, I'd probably like Bischoff if we just met in a bar and had a beer. Because I think he's a real thoughtful, smart guy. I do think he's smart, but I think he also knows how to make money, and he knows, as obnoxious as he can be, he's working everybody. I don't click on his podcast, and I only retort when someone posts something from him and claims that he's one of the greatest minds in wrestling history. No, he's not. No, he's not. No, he's not. And only only a Bischoff sycophant would think he is. That believes everything he has to say. So whatever. I mean, again, Bischoff's been wrong a real lot in his day. And he's one of the top 5 reasons WCW went out of business. But that was improv. That's what I love about our show now, Vladi. We didn't have anything planned to talk about Eric Bischoff. We just cut that scumbag right in half. He's not a scumbag. Again, this isn't personal, by the way, folks. Everything I ever talk about, most of these guys, it's not personal. They're probably really nice guys in general. Like Baron Corbin, I have nothing personally against him. Might be the nicest guy in the world. It's just, we're just, this is what we do. We do a talk
show. Like a real mensch.
Yeah. It's like if you're criticizing a football player or you're criticizing a baseball player, it's not personal. And so keeping that in mind, I mean, I'm just giving you what Eric Bischoff is. Again, personally, I probably like the guy because when he's just being a normal guy, he sounds like he's pretty cool, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And he's a smart guy. So, but fuck him anyway. Let's bury him anyway.
That's a double-edged sword known as Silicon Steve Valley.
Yeah, and I also buried him on my not my last moment in the Valley, but the prior one before, which is only available on Spotify. The YouTube video will be out shortly, but I go into details of why WCW went out of business. And Bischoff was actually I believe he was reason number 5. He wasn't 1, 2, 3, or 4. He was number 5. I think it was 4 actually, and he was the least of the 4 that I brought up. Even though he was part of the other one, the contracts were major. He was a major issue with those contracts. So. All the contracts he signed in between 95, 96, 97 that were just pariah contracts by the time 2000 and 2000 rolled along. And Tom Warner's like, what are we doing here? The ratings aren't good anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It is all part of being in this internet wrestling community. You have to have your hacks. and all that. At least Cornette and Last, at least there's some humor there, and they have a lot of entertainment value outside of just bashing AEW. You know, and you know, I like Cornette a lot more than the other two, to be honest with you. Russo's a distant third.
Yeah, I can't listen to Russo. And then but even hearing Cornette's like take on WWE, I find entertaining, and just how fucking excited he gets over The Rock. And then Last is like thank God we have this version of him, because otherwise, if you get babyface Rock, Brian Last hates that, and he doesn't care how much. But the thing is, Cornette's still like gobbling The Rock like nobody else, and Last is like, we'll put him in check with that. Like, you can't give him all credit on everything, and Cornette just is dying to give The Rock all sorts of credit, man. He's like awestruck by him.
Cornette might go back to WWE, man. If you now that Vince isn't there.
Yeah. Well, you saw CM Punk mention him during that promo, right?
Yeah. He listens to, I thought he meant the Joe Rogan Experience. Just kidding.
No.
I like how he threw shade at Pat McAfee too. That was cool.
And McAfee, actually, when he said that, he said, "I don't blame you." Like, he kind of put over Jim Cornette as well.
Yeah, I mean, Cornette, I think the thing I like about Cornette more than the other two, and this is the truth, I think Cornette has a very good understanding of what his place is in the wrestling business. He doesn't brag about how important he was and all this other kind of stuff. He brings up his experiences. But the way Russo and Bischoff talk about each other, about themselves, you would think these guys are the greatest minds in the history of the business, particularly Russo. And he's the last one who should be. He was
he's the worst.
Mitigated disaster. So that's the thing. And the hypocrisy that those two show more than anything, where I think Cornette's just, when it comes to certain forms of wrestling, he's just a miserable fuck and likes the territory days. That's for damn sure. But either way.
That's for sure. But yeah, man. So that's a pretty good segment we had there.
Oh, I thought it was incredible. Anytime you just shit on Bischoff, it's always a good time for me. Anytime. What else we got going on in the world of AEW? Anything? Was there something else we wanted to talk about? I think we got the big ones. We got the.
Yeah, I think we got the big ones. Yeah, I mean, you have no doubt that the EVPs are going to win the tag belts, right?
No doubt at all. By the way, we got a lot of heat for calling out Chris Jericho on one of our recent podcasts. Ton of heat.
Oh my God.
Our Facebook, you should have seen the comments when we posted that. The AEW gatekeepers came after us. One dude actually stalked our personal pages, made fun of our weight, which is not nice. It hurts. It hurts a lot.
It's terrible. Are you saying I'm fat?
Stop the presses. Holy shit, you're right.
Oh my God.
Wait a minute. I am fat. What? Hopefully we're going to be in better shape by Memorial Day weekend, because I'm going on vacation and I'd rather be about 15 to 20 pounds less than I am now. Maybe 30 if we're lucky, but 30 pounds in 2 months, that's a little tough.
Bulimia is a hell of a drug.
So's cocaine. Either way, we'll get it done, one way or the other. Maybe both.
So you were saying about these gatekeepers and they made fun of our weight.
Well, no, it's amazing. And I kind of changed my perspective on the Jericho thing. I know we were saying, well, he just leeches off. We had a big. You can watch the video. It's on our YouTube page, and you can also check the Spotify. You can also check the podcast out on Spotify. We were basically saying Jericho the last couple years has been just picking a young guy and stalling their momentum and leeching off of them to try to stay relevant. Here's the reality of the bottom line. Just one more thing for everybody who had a problem with what we were saying. They were saying, what do you mean? He puts everybody over. He doesn't bury anybody. We never said he wasn't putting people over. That was never part of our conversation. So that was one backlash we got. People didn't even watch the video, and they're screaming at us saying that he puts everyone over. We never said he didn't do that. But what we're saying is that he always picks the hot, young, up-and-coming star, has a program with him, and they break their momentum. You know why? The biggest problem with Chris Jericho, he hasn't been good or entertaining in 2 years. That's the bottom line. If he was entertaining like Christian, these young guys that Christian was putting over, so it's not about him leeching off a talent, it's about him not being any fucking good at his job anymore. Terrible at his job. His promos are played out and corny, to the point where he actually was laughed at by Ricky Starks in one of the promos.
Yeah.
The storylines have been boring and stupid, or poorly done, like the handcuffs going awry in the Britt Baker Adam Cole move. So that's the bottom line with Jericho. Okay, he's not leeching off of younger talent. You want to say that's fine, but he sucks at his job at this point. Legend as what he was, and you and I are OG Jerichoholics. Man of 1,004 holes. 4 more than Stinko Malenko. But the bottom line is he's been garbage on TV for 2 years. That's the reality. And if any of you can tell me he's been good, you're lying. So that's his problem. Not that he leeches off a younger talent. He just sucks anymore and isn't entertaining. And I hit the fast forward button when he shows up. That's his big problem. Happy now? Are you guys happy now? Okay.
Hey, either they're lying or they love karaoke. It's one of the two things.
So, but I'm glad we're getting our name out there. High Spots and Sheep Pops can continue to grow. I'm excited. We are 1 week away from WrestleMania. Vladi Dottie, I think we're done, right? We good for today?
Yeah, we're good for today, man.
Well, we got 2 more times we're going to be getting together over the next week. A lot of content coming out, getting ready for what may be an extraordinarily finish to WrestleMania. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. For Vladi, Dottie, this is Silicon Valley. Hit the subscribe button. Please tell us what you think, whether it be on our shorts, whether it be on our videos, whether it be on our Facebook. We want to interact with you. We will always try to be respectful, but if you come at us with some sass, we're not afraid to come back at you with that either, especially you, Vladi Dottie. Very brutal, some of these people.
They deserve it.
But shout out to Chris and Kellen from our High Spots and Sheep Pops fan page. They're going to be look like they're going to be joining us possibly on the show this week, talking about WrestleMania. So we're excited about that. So for everybody else here from High Spots and Sheep Pops, for Vladi Dottie, Silicon Valley, this is High Spots and Sheep Pops. Here ended the lesson.